welcome to a very special edition of the CJ and Joy podcast. Joy is going to tell you the story of when her baby was born, which to date on this podcast was about almost 5 months ago.
4
months ago. Okay.
Crazy.
Take us to the day, morning of.
Okay. And this podcast, it's really about how things did not go how we thought they were, how things went really wrong at a moment, and it was really scary. We thought we were going to lose him, but spoiler alert, we didn't. Praise God. The morning of, CJ knows, I was a disaster. I was so scared going into this.
A disaster in what way?
I was so nervous leading up to it, like weeks ahead of time. And maybe this is what you were like when you were getting ready to have a baby. Some women are confident, not me. I was like, I can't do this. I'm so scared. In fact, that's why I waited a long time to have a kid. I was like, I don't think I can do labor. I was so nervous.
The interesting part about this too is to give you sort of a time capsule. Obviously having a baby in the middle of COVID
makes it worse.
This was the peak of panic in America too, like when this happened. And I had been doing the show with you, but she was doing the show from home, which oddly enough, I feel like we talked even more when that was happening, because you'd be staring at your screen, I'd be on the other side of the screen and vice versa. And you were, in a word, panicked about the pain. It was the pain.
Yep. It was specifically that I can't handle even like a stubbed toe. So I was like, how am I supposed to have a baby?
So they were going to induce.
Yeah.
And then they suggested it and you couldn't quite decide. So you finally did say, okay, let's go ahead and do this thing.
Yes. And we went back and forth for forever so that we knew exactly when the baby was going to come morning of. And if that's not your story, you're a hero, because even having it all planned out and being able to know, like, this is what time we're going in and this is about what time the baby will be born. Still, I was still a wreck.
Even the night before, I was like, good luck, buddy. And you were like, well, I may back out.
I said I may chicken out.
I think you asked the doctor. You were like,
didn't.
if we cancel, do we still have to pay?
What if I just refused to do it? What then? So we didn't really sleep the night before, obviously, and we go in. And this is the toughest part, is that my brain was mentally ready for like several mountains of difficulty. And I was like, I just have to get over each one and jump to the next. And I didn't expect that before the process even got started, I wouldn't be able to handle my IV. Just a simple IV. This tells you how bad I am with pain. They had to try, I don't know, CJ, 4 or 5 times to be able to give me the IV. And
why? Because they couldn't find a vein?
They couldn't get it. And I was bawling by the end. And I was begging my husband to take me home. I said, forget it. I don't want to do this. And he would not let me quit.
They need to do your vein first. What goes in your vein? It's just
to be ready. And then because I was being induced, they start putting medication in it to force your body into labor, which is not pleasant either. But they had to get the anesthesiologist to come in. And when she came in, I'm just tear-stained. And I said, I don't want to do this. And she was like, sweetie, we're going to be fine. And I looked at her and I said, you get one chance, ma'am. One. And she got it.
Oh,
she
really?
got it in because she knew that's all she had. I was like, this is like the 5th or 6th time I'm being stabbed. So I can't do this anymore. It was that was the roughest part, honestly. I know that sounds crazy, but the IV, the pain, and I think that the mental anxiety of it all starting was the hardest part.
So what time of day is this?
Oh, like 5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
It was like the worst time of day to start because you're like half asleep and not ready.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when a woman gets induced for labor, you don't know if you're in for an hour-long ride, a 24-hour-long ride. You don't really know how your body is going to react to all that stuff.
No idea, but it's often pretty long. And so I had snacks, I had books, I had my iPad. I was like, I'm ready for the long haul. And we get going, things start happening, and listen, I couldn't take the pain, as you can imagine. A lot of women, they like go into a really, I don't know, calm, quiet place. Maybe that's what you did in the midst of your labor. I did not. I had to pace the room when the contractions started. It's like a wave. A wave crashes over you of pain that starts. And as it got more intense, I would start yelling at my husband to count.
I want to understand. we've talked about this before. It feels like it feels like you're getting like a Charlie horse, but in like your abdomen region, right?
Yes, it's so horrible. Like,
and that's why they stand up.
Yeah, it's
sometimes,
something,
right? Because
yeah.
you just want to elongate your torso.
Just stretch out the muscles in any way possible. My husband was so patient. Something about him counting through the contractions with me helped my brain to be like, I'm doing this. I'm getting through. It's happening. And I also discovered that when I'm in pain, I like to squeeze things as hard as I can. So I would walk around the room and find like a table or wood somewhere, and I would squeeze it as hard as I could. And I had bruises on the inside of my hands after my labor because it was so intense. And I, within about an hour, said, no, thank you. Can I please have the juice? Can you please bring me an epidural?
The epidural. Oh, okay. Yeah. Which numbs you up.
I was in such need of an epidural that I was like, I want to see that lady right now. Can you bring that lady back?
What's the epidural thing? Like why you would want to see if you could take it? Is that like a badge of honor amongst? I know some women.
It is.
Some women do go no epidural.
Yes.
And I don't. Epidural is just like drugs to make sure you don't feel the pain, right?
Yeah. If you have had labor without an epidural, you're so strong because what I experienced was so painful that I really couldn't imagine it. And so, yeah, they had to, which the epidural's not pleasant either, but it was nothing compared to the pain I was experiencing, like nothing. And so they gave me that and it did not even work at first. I was still crying and like really struggling. And so they had to come back in and like juice it a little more. And when they did that, I was the happiest I'd been in about 9 months. I said, can I have a popsicle and the TV remote? Thank you. And I watched Pirates of the Caribbean. I was so happy. See, do you remember? I have a picture. We can put it in the show notes. I've showed you this before. Do you remember a picture of me?
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure.
When I got the popsicle, I went from like crying, this is the hardest day of my life, to being like, hey, like I was in the best mood because truly the pain was just gone. And I was like, this is going to be a great experience. But I mean, it didn't go awesome from there. I hoped that it would, but about an hour later, they were like, you're ready to have this baby. So
so we can all kind of get a picture here. So from the time that you start, like you get to the hospital, it's like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
To when it's like, okay, it's time to have a baby. How long is that?
Let's see. I don't know. It was about 1 o'clock when it was time to have the baby.
Wow.
So that's actually,
that's pretty good.
It's really fast. We were shocked. I was like, I haven't had time to like listen to the songs I wanted to listen to or like meditate or all these things that you're like, I'll do this for hours before the baby. I hadn't done any of it. And so we were very anxious when they were like, all right, time to start pushing because we just weren't mentally ready. And I think you need to be to get ready to do that. And the crazy part is that they made my husband grab a leg, which he did not want to do.
Let's not put that picture in the show notes. Oh, Lord.
I mean, nobody wants to do that. But the doctor was like, all right, you guys get going and come get me when the baby's like ready, which I didn't know. I've never had a baby before. I didn't know that's what they do. So it was just me, the nurse, and my husband in there starting to push and to have this baby. It was so overwhelming. And in the midst of all of this, I'm hooked up to a heart rate monitor so you can keep up with how the baby's doing during all of it. So
where does that hook up at?
It's just like across your belly.
Oh, okay.
And so as I'm in the process, I'm not really in pain. So I'm just nervous and overwhelmed. And as I start pushing and being like, well, I got some work to do to be able to meet this sweet little boy.
What does pushing feel like?
Well, for me, nothing, but
I mean, but even when you say nothing, you can still, like, you don't feel the pain, but like.
It was, honestly, I didn't know if I was doing anything, see.
Oh, really?
Like,
oh, really?
I didn't know if I was. They'd be like, push. And I would go, is anything happening?
Is it like, okay, so is it like flexing your abdominal muscles?
Yeah, you try to. And you just try to like, basically you try to like bend over and squeeze your body down as much as you can. And they tell you all these scary things like, don't just like tighten up your face too much or you'll bust blood vessels in your face.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's comforting for sure.
It was a nerve-wracking moment. And so that's happening, and we are hooked up to this heart rate monitor, and my husband was like all over it. He was constantly checking on our son, which is just his heart. And so we're hearing the baby's heartbeat, and a pretty typical heartbeat for him during that time was like beep, 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 because babies have fast heart rates. And as I start pushing, we just notice that the heart rate is a little off, and all of a sudden we're hearing beep, beep.
And you're pretty used to the way that
beep.
It sounds because you've been listening to it probably for hours at this point,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And so we take note, but I honestly just thought maybe the heart rate monitor is moving as I'm pushing, and it's not able to pick him up very well. So the nurse, she got a little bit alarmed. She said, hey, maybe let's turn you on your side. Let's see if the baby responds a little bit better. And so she does that, and the baby is still beep, beep. And that's when we started to get nervous. We were like, I think something's really wrong. And so my husband noticed that the nurse kind of reached over and hit that call button that's on any hospital bed. Maybe you noticed one if you've ever been in.
But she's not externally notifying you guys
No.
overtly there's an issue. She's just being cool, trying to make sure you guys
Very
be cool.
calm.
Okay. All right.
And that's why I didn't even understand that it was bad at first.
This is an interesting moment, though, because it almost sounds like in the midst of this, your maternal instincts start to kick in for the first time.
Yes. I was like, I think something's not okay with the baby. And I'm doing everything I can to stay calm because I don't know anything. And the nurse was just so good. They must have code for everything at the hospital. When she hit that call button, all she said was, I could use another set of hands in here. And she said it just like that. And I kid you not, within 10 seconds, the doors burst open and 8 people came in. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? And they all start hooking me up to things, and they quickly put oxygen on me, and they looked at me and said, Joy, we have to get this baby out right now. And I don't know. I wasn't ready for any of that. And I thought it was like that beautiful moment of having your baby and just the angels singing and hearing that sweet little cry and being able to look at your spouse. I felt like immediately that was gone. That was not going to happen. I just wanted him to be okay. And I think the worst part of that moment was probably as they're crowding around me, my husband got pushed out of there.
Did they tell you what was what do you know now? What was wrong?
No, we still don't know. All we know is that he was in distress and that his heart rate was too low. They don't know what was causing the distress. They just knew that if I kept pushing, that he would not be able to withstand that. So it was kind of I immediately was like, do we do an emergency C-section? And the nurse quickly looked at me and said, remember when we talked about some worst case scenarios at the beginning? We're going to have to activate one of those, which is not what you want to hear, Yeah. And so I'm looking at my husband, and he is so panicked, as you can imagine. We both were. It was just like what's happening? This isn't nobody prepared us for this in any of our classes. And all I wanted to do was look at him and be like, we're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. And I couldn't say anything because this oxygen mask is on me. And I just looked at the nurse with desperation in my eyes. What do I do? I need help. And it's almost like she read my mind, CJ. She saw my face and saw my husband getting pushed away from me. And I watched her go over to him, and she grabbed him, and his name's Hunter. And she said, Hunter, it's going to be okay. We're going to get this baby out. Your wife's going to be okay. And that helped me so much, honestly. It was what I needed in the moment. So things went pretty quick after that. The doctor came rushing in. He was yelling a little bit. The
doctor was yelling a little bit?
He said, I need a vacuum now. I was yelling at the people, and I was like, this is not good.
Get me a Hoover, whatever it takes.
A shark.
Yeah, come on.
I was like, I don't know exactly what a vacuum is.
I don't either.
But I don't like it. But I know it's about to be used.
I assume this is something that happens occasionally.
Yeah, it's what they try before they do, I guess, an emergency C-section. And he was looked at me and said, we got to get this baby out right now. And I was like, tell me what to do, doctor. I'm all over it. At that point, I didn't care about me. I just was I don't care what has to happen. And so he used the vacuum, basically like pulls your baby out. And so together with the doctor, he was like, basically you have a few pushes to try to get him out. And if not, we're wheeling you down the hall. And so as much as I could, I gave it everything I had to like push that baby out. And he came out.
Yeah,
and he was okay.
And he's just perfect.
I know, like NICU was in there and everybody was checking him out. And truly the moment that he was born it wasn't the like fairy tale moment that I thought that it would be, because I was so afraid that he wouldn't be okay. You know what I mean? But once I heard like that little whimper cry, it wasn't strong. It was a little whimper cry. I finally took a deep breath.
They're always puny in the beginning.
Are they?
Yeah, you're like, this is nothing. I
See,
remember I said the
know.
same thing.
Were
Doctor
you-
was
you
like,
nervous
you
about
wait
the
till 3
crying?
a.m. They'll be raising the roof. And they do. They raise the roof in the middle of the night. So
Yes.
here's a quick question before we wrap this up. When this was all done, were you able, because you know like when you have like a rush of emotion, they talk about this when say you're like almost in a car accident or you go through something traumatic of any variety that happens like really quickly.
So fast.
Did you have to like go back and compartmentalize your emotion because so much happened so quickly?
Yeah, I think so. It was
Emergency,
like,
heart,
yeah.
panic. Oh, I'm a parent now. You know, that's quite an
Yeah.
hour of activity.
I think it's taken me a long time to even be able to like talk about it and think about what happened because right after you're like, oh, I'm a parent. This is scary. And we were just like shaken really emotionally to our core from that moment of thinking we might lose him. And then immediately becoming parents, it took us like, I don't know, weeks, months to be able to like process what all we felt in that time and what that kind of did. But my in-laws saw my husband that night and they said he was still visibly shaken like 10 hours later.
Your husband was.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, it would just, it wasn't the birth that we thought. And a lot of people have different stories than what they thought. And even more, some people don't have the conclusion that we did. And I've just never been so grateful when I look at that little boy that like we had the doctor that we did, that he knew what to try, that we decided to be induced and have him the way we did because everything worked out, that he was all right, you know?
I think it's really great that you shared this, and that you've done so now and you're able to wrap your brain around it. Why did you want to share the story?
I think just because a lot of people, myself included, hear stories when someone is having a baby about how like wonderful and perfect and beautiful some of those moments are. And that's what I thought I was going to have. And that was not the experience. It was like a little traumatic, honestly. And it was rough, but it doesn't change like the amazing gift that my son is. I just wanted to be able to share like another perspective. Sometimes things go a way you don't want them to go, and sometimes they're really scary. And in the last moment, you're like, I have no idea. It doesn't matter what my plan was. You know, it doesn't matter how I wanted to give birth or how things should have been in my brain. And I love control, and it wasn't any of those things, but it doesn't make it any less special that my son is like here with us, you know?
I think it's so great that you're able to just like articulate the entire story. As a matter of fact, if you're watching this video or you have someone you think could benefit from Joy's story, we would love for you to not only share this or the podcast, but I know Joy would love to hear from you as well as you get ready to segue into parenthood, and or maybe you just had your own unique birth story as well. As you know, you probably want to make sure you're feeling like you're not in isolation going through this by yourself.
Oh, and if you're having a kid this year or in a pandemic, it's the most isolating time to have a baby. You literally can't have visitors. Can't have anything.
God has a way of pushing you to the limits, right? He's really weird like that. What's that? Like, you know, he's never going to give you anything that you can't
handle.
That
I
you
think
can't
that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
He totes will, and then he'll go, let me handle it.